My name is Harrison. I suffer from severe hyperacusis. I was embarrassed to make this video, but I'm doing it anyways. I am embarrassed because the severity of my hyperacusis is so bad that I didn't want my friends and acquaintances to know that I am seriously and profoundly disabled by it. This might sound bad, but growing up, I always thought being disabled was the opposite of cool. But now, my opinion has changed. Disabled people are not uncool. Disabled people are just the same as everybody else. They're just disabled. This is exactly why I thought I should speak out. Because right when it feels uncomfortable to do so, that's when you know you should. My hyperacusis was based off an acoustic trauma. I had only been to 2 concerts in my life, and the first one was an open air concert. However, the second indoor one, just that alone caused me a severe acoustic trauma. When it happened, it felt like something broke in my left ear. And then I got this weird sensation of shooting pain that started in my spine. Felt all tingly. And then immediately it hit me like a shock wave. These electric currents went up into my spine and into my neck and then into my head. It was the most painful experience. I've never experienced any more pain than that in my life. I didn't know it at the time, but at that moment I was having what my neurologist probably thinks is a non-convulsive seizure. I covered my ears instinctively, and I noticed that this helped. Then I uncovered them just to test, and the electric currents came shooting back. Also, for context, I came to this concert with a group of friends who I had known for just under a year. When I started covering my ears because I was in pain, they all looked at me funny. And I told them I was feeling strange and I felt maybe like I should leave and that the sound was too much. But they just told me I was acting like a weirdo and making them look weird. Suffice it to say, they were wrong. However, despite my friends' claims that I was acting like a weirdo, I knew better. And I took a walk outside the venue. And suddenly, the shooting pain, and worst of all, the electric currents in my head had stopped. This is right when I knew that I wasn't acting like a weirdo, that I had seriously, physically injured myself. And I needed to see a doctor. So, with this thought in mind, the next day I set up an appointment with an audiologist and a neurologist. I had to go to 3 audiologists before finding an audiologist who could even correctly diagnose me with hyperacusis instead of just tinnitus. After the diagnosis, my audiologist told me flat out, there isn't much I can do for you. We can try a couple of things, but this is very hard to treat. After hearing this disappointing result from the audiologist, I thought surely that the neurologist could be able to do something. But all he could say was that my family's history of severe hearing loss and my family's history of nervous system diseases most likely could be contributing factors to the hyperacusis. What then followed was that I tried every single treatment that my audiologist and neurologist could come up with. My audiologist had me try sound therapy for a year and a half, but that did not work either. Upon the advice of my neurologist, we tried every single commonly used anti-seizure medication. These did not work. Lastly, I had been to almost 30 doctors at this point, and they had all failed to mention the Silverstein surgery. This is not uncommon in the hyperacusis community, where so little is known about our condition that ENTs don't even know the relevant information in their own specialty. because there is such a lack of knowledge about hyperacusis. After finding out about the surgery myself, I got the surgery scheduled and was eagerly anticipating results from the round and oval window stapes reinforcement procedure. It didn't work. After this, I knew I was factually out of options, and I was now and for the foreseeable future totally disabled as a result of my rare disease in 2023. The fact that I am disabled creates physical difficulty that just can't be overcome. But the rareness of my disability subjects me to discrimination, which is just not right. Not right. I have found myself constantly dealing with the emotional distress of others because of me being disabled. Quote unquote. Those are direct quotes. In my experience, sometimes the people who can be the least understanding is the people who are supposed to understand you and support you the most, which would be your family. After I initially got hyperacusis, I was staying at my family member's house over the summer, trying to recuperate the nerve damage in my ears. After doing my due diligence, I was able to go a period of 2.5 months without sound in order to heal the auditory nerve and lower the ensuing neuronal hyperexcitation. This was purely based on my intuition and knowledge of neurology and anatomy. And after my ENT told me the exact same thing, I was not surprised. And I was extremely proud that I was able to think critically and analyze the situation without help. Very, very, very proud of that. Unfortunately, one of my family members, who has always struggled with severe anxiety, was completely delusional by this point over my diagnosis of hyperacusis, and had convinced themselves I was schizophrenic because they thought I was insane because I couldn't handle loud noises. In my experience, there have been far too many times where I've been told my sensitivity to sound is made up. I can also count on both hands how many times I've been told I have an underlying anxiety that is making my hyperacusis worse than it is. Now, this is where a renewed interface between doctors and hyperacusis research organizations is absolutely essential, because the current modalities are not sufficient to make sure family members, those providing care, provide adequate accessibility, and in fact do not encourage setbacks and further noise trauma, because they are simply unaware of the medical realities of hyperacusis. It strikes me that as a community, we need a clear and more defined approach to our treatment plan that is both uniform in scope and legally binding in nature. Such a system could serve to advance the disability rights and accessibility of hyperacusis sufferers everywhere, not just in their own personal lives. This all comes back to the key issue of setbacks. I've had many setbacks. Most were by accident, and many have been caused by my confused family. I feel that the last point is what differentiates the hyperacusis patient specifically, and is a unique experience that we as a rare disease community with a low awareness of our disease must come to terms with. So much so, as I had previously mentioned, before I had moved back home, we had emailed to arrange for accessibility and the maintenance of a noise-safe and accessible environment for me, because I was aware that protecting myself from further noise trauma was critical to my recovery at that point, in this early stages of my condition. Of course, this agreement was a trick. And in the end, my own family member caused me to have a setback that I would never fully recover from, turning my moderate hyperacusis into severe hyperacusis. Me and my family member had agreed to go to a car wash to get my car washed. My family member had agreed that my family member would do the talking because I explained that I had nerve damage in my ears. However, this changed when we pulled up and suddenly my family member did not do this and purposely got out of the car and removed themselves from the situation and abandoned me on purpose in order to make me take my earplugs out and talk to the car washing machine technician. Unfortunately, this was not a smart move on my family member's part because an automatic car wash is extremely loud when it is running, and the gas generators they were using were running at around 110 decibels at around 10 feet away. However, it was not clear how loud they really were with my earplugs in. So when I took the earplugs out, it was too much for the newly damaged cochlear nerve to handle, and it increased the severity of my hyperacusis to a level from which I have never been able to recover from. This pattern of discrimination has continued consistently in the almost half a decade now since I first got my hyperacusis. After again doing my due diligence, I was able to go a period of almost 2 years without another significant setback. This was good. However, when having any informed discussion on hyperacusis, one cannot continue any reasonable discourse without the mention of a setback. A setback is a medical term for a secondary noise-induced injury that leads to resurgence in the severity of the original acoustic trauma, and thusly a resurgence of severe hyperacusis. A setback can range from life-limiting to totally debilitating, and can be either temporary or in some unfortunate cases permanent. At this point, I still had severe hyperacusis and relied heavily on earplugs to prevent setbacks, which for my subtype of hyperacusis, also called noxacusis, happen especially easily and last for a period of several months to years, leaving me totally disabled during that period. At this point, I was more than sure, I was 100% confident that my family had adjusted to my condition and the medical necessities that surrounded it. I had shown them videos about it, and I had shown them hyperacusis research stories that showed that pain and hyperacusis is a real thing. And there are thousands of other people who have to live their lives just like I do. To cut the story short, I was looking forward to seeing my family member and attending a wedding with them and my extended family. We were in the car going to the wedding, and I realized I had forgotten earplugs. So I made a request that we stop at a pharmacy to get some of my usuals. However, the family member once again tried to intentionally divert my accessibility by lying and saying that we would stop. When I asked why we were driving past the pharmacy, I received no response. At this point, I had to wait for the car to slow at a stop sign and get out in order to get to the pharmacy to get my earplugs. This pharmacy scenario is abhorrent in the worst sort of ways, but highlights what many of us have to deal with daily. It is clear that this scenario constitutes the intent to divert my accessibility, willful negligence, and dangerous to my health and safety. It could not be more clear, so I will say it again. If a person with hyperacusis requires earplugs, you cannot refuse them hearing protection. It's a medical necessity for all those watching. It is clear that such a scenario constitutes the intent to divert my own accessibility, willful negligence, and dangerous to the health and safety of the patient. As a community, I think it is extremely vital to connect genuinely and empower each other. The platform and others, like the subreddit Tinnitus Research, the Hyperacusis Research Facebook page, the Noxacusis subreddit, are all vital to spreading information and communication as to how to advance hyperacusis research and use as a network to fight ableism and discrimination of all forms. I'm currently now in the process of applying for disability benefits, to which I am entitled due to my total and permanent disability. Presently, the family member who is supporting me financially still thinks severe hyperacusis is a psychological disease. Also that hyperacusis can be livable with the right attitude, and that I'm just having a manifestation of anxiety, or that I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it is. At this point, my ENT doctors have approved a treatment plan for my pain hyperacusis, which includes sound isolation during setbacks. But my family still refuses to follow the doctor's instructions. Additionally, my family member has threatened to stop paying my rent and giving me money for food, running water, and electricity, unless I go to therapy. Yes, mental health therapy. Since my family member ignorantly thinks hyperacusis is a mental health, I'm here to clear up any misnomers. Hyperacusis is a real disability, and it is totally and permanently disabling, in all senses of the word. The extent to which everyone has hyperacusis is extremely diverse and completely variable on the degree of auditory nerve damage that is different within every single patient. If I were to learn one valuable lesson from such an experience, it would be this. When I asked my mother why she did that thing at the car wash, she replied with, "You were acting very strange." If there is one thing I learned from this experience, it's that in 2023, people with hyperacusis are viewed as strange. But I think in 2043, when our hearing aid comes out, I think the way people have been treated with hyperacusis till this point will be viewed as strange. Because that's what discriminating and making fun of cripples, doesn't get stranger than that.